Hello and welcome to another episode of the Classical Republican. Today we're talking about unions and why unions should be supported by classical Republicans. So first I'm going to talk about how in the United States of America the unions are becoming very popular and give some of the arguments that Republicans, meaning the GOP, and Democrats, the Democratic Party, use to support unions. So first, let's talk about, we'll talk about the Democrats first, because traditionally they've been very supportive of unions, or been perceived to be very supportive of unions. And this comes from it comes from FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the New Deal coalition. And that's where it begins, but I'm going to fast forward to 2020, the Democratic platform. It talks about how unions increase wages, protections, and standards for workers. On the website, democrat.org, it also talks about that unions help workers to be stronger together. Okay, so remember, stronger, the strength is important there. Let's talk about Republicans. And Republicans were very pro-union way back in the day, 19th and early 20th centuries. But recently, let's fast forward to 2021, we have the Banks memo, which talked about, well, it begins with, quote, President Trump gave the Republican Party a political gift. We are now the party supported by most working class voters. The question is whether Republicans reject that gift or unwrap it and permanently become the party of the working class, end quote. While it does not mention unions specifically, it does open the door to supporting unions. And it talks about appealing to working class values and promoting prosperity. So prosperity is the big thing to remember there. Since that time, we've seen Senator Marco Rubio, has come out in support of Amazon workers and their union efforts. And so we may see warming of the Republican Party to unions or other forms of workers' organizations in the future. So we see these two American parties who draw primarily from classically Republican sources in their rhetoric. And so we're, things like Hobbes and Locke. However, as a classical Republican, my goal is not simply prosperity or strength, while both of those are needed for workers, they are for the purpose of achieving liberty. And when we're talking about liberty, we're talking about non-domination rather than non-interference. And so let me read from Philip Pettit's Republicanism. And he said, this is on page 142, he says, the ideal of freedom as non-domination gives a very different cast to collective action. Let us suppose that individual contracts of employment are wrested from workers under the specter of destitution, and that they put the employer in a position of domination relative to employees. The resort to collective action in such a situation may represent the only hope of winning freedom as non-domination for those who are employed. It may be the only way of giving the workers sufficient power to enable them to be able to stand up individually to their employer. Okay, so Philip Pettit recognizes the importance of unions in being able to assert, for workers to assert themselves, and be able to stand up to the power of their employers. But You also have other sources of classical republicanism, like Giuseppe Mazzini, who really believed in associations, was what he called them. And we see this enshrined in the constitutions of the Republic of Rome, which was the 1849 Republic of Rome, which him and Garibaldi were able to overthrow the powers that be and to set up a republic in 1849. And then also we see his influence in the constitutions, well, several European constitutions, but also the Constitution of the Republic of Italy. After World War II, we see union being a right in the Republic of Rome, enshrined in the Constitution. I'm sorry, the Constitution of Italy. Unions are very important to classical Republicans. Not just for things like getting more pay, better benefits. Sure, those are things that you want to have as a worker, but really it comes down ultimately to liberty defined as non-domination. So, if you have the opportunity to be a part of a union, then you should do that, and you should remember that they are tools for asserting non-domination. Until next time, long live the Republic.